McMurrin, a building superintendent at the Chicago Bears training complex in Lake Forest, Illinois, and a man not drawn toward exaggeration. Walter, McMurrin told me, was like a cannonball with skin stretched over it. Although he had been retired for 12 years at the time we met, football players old and young still mythologized Payton's Hill, an incline that once stood near his house in Arlington Heights, Illinois. It was just 60 yards long, but rose at an angle of 75 degrees, with loose dirt and small rocks and pebbles, making footing treacherous. All off-season long, Payton would be sprinting the hill, up and down, up and down, up and down. He'd invite some of the guys to work with him, said Vince Evans, a former Bears quarterback. If you hadn't been to the hill before, he'd look at you and laugh, because Walter would just climb up that like a bobcat. And you'd follow in his dust. I was a pretty good athlete, so the first time I said, "This ain't nothing." Well, halfway up, I was sucking air. Once that one was over, he said we were going to do 10 more. 10? That was the real eye-opener to this guy's power. So how the hell did this make sense? Me fidgeting before a man who looked nothing like the 5'10", 205-pound ball of iron from McMurrin's memories. According to the public statements of his doctors, Payton needed a liver transplant to survive beyond 2 years. That was, it turns out, incorrect. By the time we met, Payton's body was already ravaged by bile duct cancer, an awful byproduct of primary sclerosing cholangitis. His odds of survival? Infinitesimal. I can only imagine what Payton must have been thinking, staring at a trembling Sports Illustrated reporter a mere 4 years removed from college. I'm dying, and this is who you send? He had that right. I was completely unqualified. I knew nothing about liver disease, little about suffering, and even less about death. In the entirety of my life, I had lost only 2 close relatives, both grandparents in their 80s. I'm dying. And this is who you send? The interview was mostly me looking down at a sheet of paper with a list of medical terms, reading a few words, then glancing Payton's way and saying, So, are you in a lot of pain? He was polite enough, under the circumstances, but surely as anxious to end things as I was. When my father inquired later that evening what it was like meeting a football player whose poster once graced my bedroom wall, I didn't hesitate. Worst experience of my life. I sighed. Like watching a superhero die. More than a decade has passed since my visit to Hoffman Estates. In that span, I've gained a wife and 2 children. I've written 4 books, penned a slew of bylines, traveled a good chunk of the world. I have seen and lived and smelled and tasted and heard. It has been a mostly blissful ride, packed with enough highs to minimize the scattered lows. Through the years, interviews have come and interviews have gone. I'll occasionally dig through the yellowed scrapbooks, stumbling upon stories I'd completely forgotten about. Ronnie Duquette, the sneaker collector from Oregon. A Mailpack High School football player named Mark Desi. Theo Ratliff, gangly 76ers center. On and on. Never, however, have I forgotten my 30 minutes with Walter Payton. I can still see the brightness of his jaundiced eyes. I can still feel the frailty of his handshake. Most important, I can still hear his voice from that day, a strained yet high-pitched blur of words and phrases. Throughout this process, I have used that voice as a guide. This is the first time I have written a biography of the deceased, and as other writers warned, the process is incomparable. One doesn't merely become obsessed with the subject. He chases it, studies it, craves it, relentlessly obsesses over it, dreams about it, is haunted by it. Just 2 nights ago, I was startled out of a deep sleep by yet another Walter Payton apparition. We were sitting in a vacant apartment. He was wearing a white t-shirt and shorts, with a rainbow-colored headband encircling his radiantly glistening jerry curl. "Are you finding what you need?" he asked. "Do you get me yet?" Then he vanished. The truth is, Walter Payton has been extraordinarily hard to get. By nearly all accounts, he was a giving and compassionate man, one who took pleasure in randomly stopping awestruck Chicagoans on the street to ask how their day was going.